The weirdest part? She put the pen down before I even picked it up. Like she knew I'd do it. Like this was all just some formality for her, a signature from the idiot husband to make everything official. And then she could get back to her happy little life with her new, whatever he is. And I did sign. God help me, I signed like a fool. She smiled. I think that's what broke me more than anything. Not the betrayal. Not the so-called proposal she gave me. Not even the fact that she dared to bring his name into our kitchen. It was the smile. That stupid, soft, yoga instructor smile like she was offering me tea, not telling me our marriage was going to involve another man or end. Jonah's important to me, and I don't want to hide that anymore. Her words. Exact quote. She said that as if she was confessing she forgot to do the laundry. Not that she'd been emotionally entangled with some barefoot breathwork guru who drums under the moon. You can choose to grow with me, or we can separate consciously. Conscious separation. That's the phrase she kept repeating, like it was something beautiful, sacred, enlightened. She'd clearly been coached on how to deliver it. Probably by Jonah. Probably during one of their silent weekend retreats she never invited me to. But then she pushed the envelope toward me. Divorce papers. Already filled out. Already signed. Already notarized, for crying out loud. That means she'd planned this. Probably weeks ago. Probably while I was still cooking her dumb oat pancakes on Sundays and rubbing her feet while she detoxed from Instagram. Then came the final sentence. The ultimatum. Accept Jonah into our lives. Or this is goodbye. That was it. Just a soft thread, rolled up in incense and delusion. She thought I'd fold. That I'd beg. That I'd plead like I always do when she threatens to leave. She thought I'd cry and say, okay, I'll try just to keep her. But this time I picked up the pen. I signed. Fast. And that's when everything changed. Her smile faded. Her eyes went wide. She looked like she'd just watched a puppy get hit by a truck. Wait, what are you doing? No. Russell, you misunderstood. No, sweetheart. I didn't. You just never imagined the man you spent years shrinking down might actually stand up. And if you think that was the twist, just wait until she finds out who else signed their papers yesterday. And why. The second she said I misunderstood, I knew she wasn't expecting me to sign. She didn't want freedom, she wanted control. Lila had always been like that. Subtle in the way she twisted things to go her way. Like the time she convinced me I forgot to book the rental car on our honeymoon, when I had the email confirmation the whole time. Or when she claimed I promised we'd start eating plant-based for the new year, even though I'd literally been cooking steaks the week before. She liked the appearance of compromise, but it was always her plan. That night, though, after I signed the papers, she started pacing, and for the first time in a long time, she looked scared. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I didn't say a word. Not because I was calm. I wasn't. My hands were shaking. My face was burning. I had no clue what I'd just done, but I knew that if I opened my mouth, I'd scream or cry or worse, beg. And I was done begging. She went to the bedroom and didn't come out for almost an hour. When she finally did, she was dressed like she was headed to a music festival. Loose flowing pants, halter top, beads in her hair. She didn't even look like the woman I married anymore. She looked like a sponsored ad for a retreat in Tulum. I'm going to Jonah's for the night, she said. No apology. No conversation. Just that. She walked out the door, and I swear to God, I stood there in the hallway for 15 full minutes, listening to my own heartbeat echo through the house. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just sat on the couch and stared at the blender she left the papers on, wondering how a stupid kitchen appliance had become the witness to my downfall. The next morning, the doorbell rang at 7:13 a.m. Not a knock. A ring. Loud. Intentional. Sharp. I opened the door still in my pajamas, and there he was. Jonah. In the flesh. Taller than I expected. Tank top. Sandals. Wooden necklace. Hair tied back in a loose man bun. He was holding a thermos in one hand and a paper bag in the other. Hey, brother. He said like we were in some kind of cult together. I brought you matcha and raw muffins. Lila said you might be in a reactive state. I didn't know whether to punch him or laugh. Instead, I just blinked and said, "What the hell are you doing here?" That's when he stepped in, uninvited. Walked past me like it was his house. Set the bag down on the counter. Opened the fridge. Looked around like he was checking inventory. This place is beautiful. Sacred masculine energy in here. I can feel it. I stood there frozen, trying to process what I was seeing. Jonah, The man who'd been secretly injected into my marriage was now walking through my home like he belonged. Then he said something I'll never forget. We can co-create this new dynamic. I'm not here to replace anything. I'm here to expand what already exists. You, me, and Lila were the new triangle. Strong base, balanced points. I almost threw up. This wasn't just an affair. It was a takeover. He wasn't the third wheel, I was. And worse, he wasn't even hiding it. Jonah sat down at my table, in my chair, and started drinking my coffee from a mug that literally said Russell's. That's when I realized, he's been here before. He knew the layout. The drawer with the spoons. The trick to turning the faucet without it squealing. Lila hadn't just brought him into her life. She'd brought him into mine. And that's when the storm hit me. Because I finally understood. This wasn't about adding him. This was about replacing me. And I had just signed the invitation. But if they thought I was going to roll over and let them turn my life into some open marriage healing experiment, they had no idea who they were messing with. Because before he even left that morning, I'd already made a phone call. And the woman who picked up? She used to know Lila better than anyone. The moment Jonah left my house, I locked the door behind him like I was sealing a vault. I stood there, hands still on the knob, staring at the wood grain, wondering how in the world things had come to this. My wife had basically handed me divorce papers, invited her friend to live among my things, and walked away like I was a storage locker, not a person. But I wasn't going to sit in my pajamas and cry on the floor like some defeated sitcom husband. No, I made a call. A dangerous one. I didn't call my parents. They wouldn't understand. They thought Lila was a spiritual angel ever since she led that breathing workshop at our family Christmas 3 years ago. I didn't call my therapist. Honestly, what was he going to say? Set boundaries, Russell? Too late for that. No, I called Haley, Lila's ex-best friend. The one she hadn't spoken to in over a year. The one she used to FaceTime every day until, suddenly, she didn't. Haley picked up on the third ring. Her voice was flat, guarded. Russell. I hadn't spoken to her since her birthday party. Lila skipped it last minute, claiming bad energy. That was the beginning of their fallout. Hey, I know it's weird I'm calling, I said. But do you know what's going on with her? There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear traffic, maybe a car door closing. Then finally, she sighed. So you do know. Something about that sentence cracked me open inside. Because it confirmed my worst suspicion. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't spontaneous spiritual enlightenment. This was a slow-burn betrayal, and I'd been asleep through the fire. Haley didn't hold back. Not anymore. Jonah's been around since before she stopped talking to me. She said I was being judgmental. I told her flat out that what she was doing was emotional cheating at best. That she was hiding things from you and justifying it as self-growth. My blood went cold. Haley continued, her voice sharper now, like she'd been waiting to say all this for a year. She changed after she met him. Started talking like a walking podcast. Saying things like, truth is subjective and monogamy is a colonial construct. She cut people out of her life if they didn't validate her. I was first. You were always going to be next. I sank into a chair and stared out the window, watching nothing. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I thought you knew, Russell. I thought maybe she'd told you. Or worse, you were okay with it. I wasn't okay with it. But I had played the part of the okay husband for so long. I guess even her friends couldn't tell the difference. Then she dropped the real bomb. Jonah's not just some wandering vibe consultant. He's married. Or was. My head snapped up. What? You didn't know? No, I didn't. Apparently, Jonah had a wife. Her name was Brooke. They lived in Oregon. They separated last year. Want to guess why? He helped one of his female clients through a spiritual breakthrough and never came home again. Classic Jonah. I didn't even finish the call with Haley. She offered to send me screenshots, old messages, everything she had. I said yes. God, yes. Anything. I needed proof. I needed clarity. I needed a damn lifeline. When I hung up, I stared at my phone like it was a time bomb. And sure enough, 5 minutes later, Lila called. Not texted. Not a voice note. A real call. That's when I knew something was unraveling. I let it ring twice before I answered. Hello. Hey, she said too softly. Are you okay? That voice. That sugary, false concern voice she only used when she was trying to spin something. You forgot to take your crystals, I said. Jonah left them on the coffee table. A pause. Then, Russ, I feel like this is spiraling too fast. I didn't say anything. I wanted to hear how far she'd go. I thought we could be mature about this. That maybe you try to understand. Jonah isn't. He's not trying to replace you. Replace me? I stood up and walked to the window, staring out into our neighborhood. Same lawns. Same dogs barking. Same lives. Mine was the only one burning down. Did you know he's married? I asked quietly. Dead silence. Then the sound of her breath catching. Gotcha. She didn't answer. Not really. Just a long exhale like her soul was deflating. I hung up before she could twist it. Then I called Haley back. Because if Brooke was out there, I needed to talk to her. Not for revenge. Not yet. But because maybe, just maybe, she'd been left standing in her kitchen one morning, too. And maybe, she had her own score to settle. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jonah's stupid wooden beads clinking against my kitchen counter and Lila's frozen face when I signed those papers. The words, "you misunderstood," echoed in my skull like a taunt. But I didn't misunderstand a thing. I just finally stopped pretending not to see what was right in front of me. And now that I knew Jonah had a wife, a real wife, something inside me twisted. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a pattern, a system, a sick little spiritual pyramid scheme where people like him used healing as a cover to destroy whatever stability other people built. Haley didn't just give me Brooke's name. She sent me her number, her Instagram, even a picture. Brooke looked nothing like what I expected. No yoga poses. No glowing smile. Just a woman with tired eyes, sitting at a messy desk surrounded by books and half-empty mugs. I stared at her picture for a long time before I finally typed a message. Hey, my name's Russell. You don't know me, but your husband has been seeing my wife. I think we need to talk. I hit send, then immediately regretted it. What if she didn't believe me? What if she wasn't really his wife anymore? But 2 minutes later, those 3 dots appeared. Where are you? That was all she said. We ended up talking that same night over a video call. Her face popped up on my screen. No filter, no calm facade. Just a woman holding herself together with coffee and anger. Her first sentence hit like a slap. I knew this would happen again. I told myself he couldn't still be doing it. And that was it. The floodgates opened. She told me everything. How Jonah had left her after a spiritual conference. How he claimed he'd found someone who understood his energy. How he'd drained their joint savings account to fund his retreats. Apparently, he'd done this exact thing twice before with other women. Each time, pretending he was single, then convincing them to rebuild their souls, while he quietly erased their lives. By the time she finished, I was gripping my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. She didn't cry. Neither of us did. We just sat in silence, listening to each other breathe through the static. Then she leaned forward and said something that would change everything. If he's with your wife, he's probably already moved into your space. He always moves in fast, rearranges their life, isolates them, makes them think they're evolving. But the pattern doesn't end there. What happens next? I asked. He starts merging finances. I froze. Because 2 days ago, Lila had casually mentioned wanting to simplify accounts. I thought it was another one of her minimalist moods. Suddenly, it made sense. Brooke smiled, but not kindly. It was the kind of smile someone wears when they've seen the monster before. If you want to stop him, you'll have to let her think she's winning. He feeds on power shifts. You have to starve him of control. Her voice had this strange mix of fury and calm, like someone who'd already buried the version of herself that got fooled once. We talked for almost an hour. When the call ended, she sent me a folder, photos, emails, screenshots, contracts, everything Jonah had done to her. The next morning, I printed them. Every single one. When Lila came home later that afternoon, she was glowing. That post-retreat radiance that always made her look like she'd been baptized in filtered sunlight. She walked in humming, holding her phone, texting him. She didn't even look up when she said, "I'm glad you're calmer now." I waited until she put the phone down, then slid the folder across the table. "You forgot something at Jonah's place." She blinked, confused, then opened it. And as she flipped through the first few pages, the screenshots, the messages, the bank transfers, I saw the color drain from her face. "Where did you get this?" "From his wife," I said. "Turns out, he has one too." She didn't say another word. Not for a long time. She just stood there, trembling, her mouth slightly open, trying to form excuses that wouldn't come. When she finally did speak, her voice cracked. "He told me she was toxic, that she made everything up, Of course he did. That's what manipulators say. You'd know. You've been repeating his words for months. She backed away like I'd slapped her, but I didn't move. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't throwing things. I was calm, too calm. Because I wasn't done. Not even close. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. You said you wanted a new beginning. You said I should accept him. Fine. Let's all sit down together. You, me, Jonah, and his wife. She gasped. That was the moment she realized this wasn't going to end quietly. And it was the first time in months that I was the one with control. It took 2 days to set it up. Not because I hesitated. I was ready. But because Brooke needed time to prepare. She didn't want to walk into that meeting empty-handed. And honestly, neither did I. I didn't want some dramatic shouting match in a parking lot. I wanted them cornered. I wanted the lies to run out of oxygen. I told Lila we were having a clearing dinner. That's the word she used when she wanted to sweep things under the rug. Clearings. Like our marriage was a whiteboard, and all she needed was a dry erase marker to fix what she'd written in permanent ink. She agreed without suspicion. Of course she did. I was playing my role again. The soft husband, the willing participant, the man desperate to keep her. She told me Jonah would be coming too. I said, great. I already knew Brooke would be flying in that afternoon. The dinner was set at a trendy vegan place Lila loved. All white walls and potted plants and chairs that looked uncomfortable on purpose. We arrived first. She wore a soft yellow dress, loose curls, no makeup, trying to look innocent, earthy, human. I almost laughed. Jonah arrived 5 minutes later, carrying some kind of hand-carved wooden box and wearing a shirt that looked like he stole it from a linen catalog. He kissed Lila's forehead in front of me like I wasn't even there. Then he turned to me and gave a nod. Not respect, not acknowledgement, permission. Like I should be honored to sit at the same table. I waited until the waiter left before I dropped the first match. We're waiting on one more. Jonah's eyebrows lifted. Lila tilted her head, confused. Who? She asked. And then, right on cue, Brooke walked in. She didn't look like revenge. She looked like closure. Jeans, leather jacket, no smile. But her presence was sharp, like she was a mirror, and suddenly, they had no place to hide. Jonah turned gray. Brooke, he whispered. Lila stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. What is this? She demanded, turning to me. I leaned back. You said you wanted transparency. I thought we'd all sit down and be honest, finally. Brooke took the seat next to me. Jonah didn't sit. He stood frozen, torn between 3 exits and none of them clean. This isn't fair, Lila snapped. You ambushed us. No, I said, my voice steady. You ambushed me 6 months ago when you started rewriting the rules of our marriage without asking me if I wanted to play. Brooke turned to Jonah. Tell her, she said. Tell her how many other women you've healed. How many bank accounts you've merged. How many marriages you've ruined while hiding behind your stupid drum circles and detox tea. Jonah tried to open his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked like he wanted to evaporate. Lila's lips parted like she was about to defend him, but she didn't. She looked at Jonah, then at Brooke, then back at me, and something in her eyes started to shake. The whole fantasy was cracking. This wasn't how it was supposed to go, she whispered. That's when I stood up. Calmly. No yelling. No dramatic speech. Just one sentence. Neither was our marriage. I dropped the manila envelope on the table. Inside were all the documents Brooke had given me. Timeline overlaps. Bank records. Screenshots of texts he'd sent to other women while he was with Lila. Contracts from failed retreats. A restraining order from 2 years ago. I looked Jonah dead in the eye. You want to evolve with someone? Try evolving in court. Then I turned to Lila. You said I misunderstood. But I didn't. You just never thought I'd stop worshiping you long enough to see you clearly. She didn't cry. She just sat there. Still. Silent. Stuck between a fantasy and the wreckage it left behind. Brooke stood, gave me a look. Not pity, not approval, just a nod. 2 survivors walking out of the same fire. We left them there. In their temple of kale and lies. 2 people who tried to rewrite reality and ended up with nothing but the truth, printed and stapled. That night, I slept like a corpse. No dreams. No tossing. Just silence. But it wasn't over. Because 2 days later, Lila showed up at my doorstep, crying. And what she said next changed everything I thought I knew about her. It was raining when she came. Not pouring, but that slow, gray drizzle that made the air feel heavier than it should be. I hadn't seen Lila in 2 days. Not since that dinner, that ambush, that war at the vegan restaurant that ended with her frozen in place, while Jonah stood there looking like a kicked cult leader. I was in the middle of folding laundry, of all things, when the knock came. I didn't recognize it at first. Not a ring, not a text, just 3 uneven taps against the wood. I opened the door, and there she was, soaked through, no umbrella, no makeup, hair clinging to her face like it was apologizing for her. Her eyes were red, and not from the rain. She didn't ask to come in. She just stepped forward, and I didn't stop her. "I messed up," she said, barely above a whisper. "But not the way you think." I crossed my arms. I didn't offer a towel, didn't move to comfort her. Not out of cruelty, out of survival. I was still waiting for this to be a manipulation wrapped in tears. And maybe it was. But what she said next knocked something loose in me. I didn't fall in love with Jonah. Not really. I fell in love with the idea that I could be someone different. Someone who wasn't stuck with the life I built. She sat down on the edge of the couch like it might collapse if she leaned too hard. She looked so small now. So far from the woman who once spun phrases like emotional expansion and vibrational alignment, as if she were reading from a gospel. After my miscarriage last year, I froze. "What? You never knew," she said, and her voice cracked. "It was early, barely 6 weeks. I didn't tell you because I thought it would feel like nothing. I told myself I didn't want kids anyway. But when it happened, something just broke in me." I sank into the chair across from her. My chest was tight, like all the air had decided it didn't belong to me anymore. "Jonah showed up in the middle of that," she continued. "I didn't even see it happening. He made me feel like I was evolving when really, I was unraveling. And I let him steer me because I didn't want to admit I was lost. I thought if I changed everything, if I made you the enemy, I wouldn't have to deal with what I'd done, what I'd hidden, from you, from myself." She looked up then, finally meeting my eyes. And I wish I could say I felt only anger. I wanted to, but what I felt was worse. I felt grief. Not for her. For us. For the life we almost had. For the child I never knew existed. For the version of our marriage that was never given a fighting chance because the truth was buried before it could breathe. "Why now?" I asked, voice hoarse. "Because Brooke reminded me who I used to be," she said. "And because when you walked out of that restaurant, you didn't yell. You didn't humiliate me. You didn't punish me. You just let me sit with it." She reached into her soaked purse and pulled out a manila envelope, thinner than the one I gave her, but still heavy. She placed it on the table. "What's this?" I asked. "My retreat contracts. My savings. Everything I merged with him. It's here. I want nothing from him. Not anymore." I didn't touch it. I just stared at her, trying to read between the lines, trying to understand what this was. An apology? A confession? A reset? "You think this fixes it?" I asked. "No," she whispered. "I think this is the first honest thing I've done in months." Silence. She stood, wringing her hands. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I didn't want you to think I never loved you." I stayed seated. My hands trembled slightly in my lap, but I made sure she didn't see. "I think you loved the version of me that didn't exist. And when I didn't turn into him, you turned to him." She flinched, but she didn't argue. She walked to the door, then turned around. "I'm going away for a while. Not with him. Not with anyone. I'm going to figure out who I am without all the noise. If that means disappearing for a year, I'll do it. But I wanted you to know the truth before I did." Then she left. No hug. No tears on my shoulder. No last attempt to twist the story in her favor. Just footsteps fading into the rain. I sat there for hours after, staring at the folder. Inside was every detail of the life she tried to build around a lie. And part of me wanted to burn it. But I didn't. Because somewhere in there, buried under shame, ego, and new age nonsense, there was something real. Something broken. And maybe, just maybe, something worth learning from. But redemption? That doesn't come with crystals or retreats. It comes with consequences. And she hadn't faced them all yet. Because what Jonah did to her, what he'd done to all of us, was about to come full circle. And this time, it wouldn't end in a restaurant. It would end in court. I didn't want revenge. That's what I told myself, over and over. I wasn't looking to destroy anyone. I wasn't plotting. I wasn't some bitter husband holding a grudge. But when you've been made a fool in your own home, watched your life turned into a pseudo-spiritual punchline, and realized the person you trusted most had been rewriting your reality like a motivational script, you start to see justice differently. And Justice, in this case, wore a black suit and had a last name ending in Berg. His name was Alan Steinberg, Brooke's lawyer, divorce attorney, civil litigator, ruthless in the most professional way possible. Brooke had been preparing for months, just in case Jonah ever resurfaced in her life. When he did, through my wife, she was ready to strike. And now I was part of it. What Lila didn't know, what Jonah didn't know, was that Brooke had more than screenshots and stories. She had paper trails, fraudulent business filings, unpaid taxes on income Jonah funneled through energy retreats hosted under multiple LLCs that were never declared properly. Payments that came from Lila's accounts, too. Accounts that now made her legally entangled in his mess. He used women to fund a lifestyle he couldn't earn himself, Alan told me. That's financial abuse. And possibly wire fraud. We're not just suing him. We're opening the cage and letting the IRS have a peek. That night, I sat at my desk staring at a draft letter Alan wrote on my behalf. A legal demand to recover the joint funds Lila contributed to Jonah's shell businesses under the impression it was coaching work. I didn't want to sign it. I didn't want to drag her through the mud, especially after everything she confessed. But then I opened my bank app. I checked the wellness fund she'd asked me to co-sign on last year. The one she said was for a personal trainer certification. $11,000 withdrawn in 4 months. Transferred to an account under Luma Breath Collective. That was Jonah's LLC. My name was still attached. That's when I signed. And that's when it all started. 3 days later, the first letter went out. For more followed. To Jonah's listed addresses, to the partner orgs he collaborated with, and to the New Age Retreat Center in Sedona that once called him a revolutionary emotional architect. Funny how fast revolutionary types vanish when they get a certified letter from the IRS and a lawsuit for financial misconduct in their inbox. Jonah didn't go silent. Oh no, he did what men like him always do. He performed. A day after the letters hit, he posted a video on Instagram. Long and rambling, shot on some rock formation, shirt half open, wind blowing through his man bun like it was auditioning for a shampoo commercial. The masculine is under attack, he said, eyes heavy with faux pain. This isn't about money. This is about control. About keeping awakened men from liberating the feminine. Liberating the feminine. Right. Brooke sent me the clip with one line. He's spiraling. Good. But the real unraveling didn't happen online. It happened on the Zoom call. Jonah had set up a group call with several of his clients, women from around the country who had signed up for his expensive one-on-one guidance programs. He expected support. What he got was a rebellion. Someone leaked the lawsuit. Someone posted the screenshots from Brooke's folder. The women turned on him. On the call. In real time. You told me you were celibate. You said the money was for a center you were building. Why does my payment say it went to Jonah R. Consulting when your invoice said it was for healing services? And Lila? She was on that call, too. Silent. Listening. Watching as the man she once believed was the next level of consciousness got verbally dragged by a dozen women he'd emotionally finessed out of money, time, trust, and in some cases, intimacy. The call ended with Jonah yelling something about being crucified by the Matrix. The next morning, his website was down. A week later, Brooke got a call from his new attorney. Not to negotiate, to settle. He didn't want it to go to court. Of course he didn't. Court meant discovery. Court meant records. Court meant the lies stopped being soft and started becoming legal definitions. Brooke had one condition. She wanted a public statement. Not a press release. Not a fake apology video. A written admission of what he did. To her, to others. Posted on every platform he used for business. He agreed. And when the post went live, Lila sent me one text. I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't know what I was part of. I didn't answer. Because it wasn't just about what she was part of. It was about how long she was willing to ignore the cracks in the foundation while pretending it was marble. Jonah's empire, his image, his program, his little cult of faux enlightenment, had collapsed in a pile of hashtags and debt. But for me, the dust was still settling. And then, just when I thought it was over, Lila asked to meet again. Not to talk. To return something. And what she brought me in that envelope wasn't just paperwork. It was a twist I never saw coming. She arrived just after sunset. No text this time. No warning. Just the quiet hum of her car pulling into the driveway I used to shovel in the winters for both of us. Back when things were simple. Before the kale smoothies. before the energy circles, before Jonah and his polished emptiness rolled into our lives like a fog pretending to be light. I stood in the hallway and watched her silhouette through the frosted glass. She hesitated for a moment before knocking, and in that pause, I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't even feel pain. Just a strange, exhausted peace. Like two soldiers meeting again after they'd fought on the same battlefield, but for different sides. I opened the door. She held out a manila envelope. Not thick. No legal threats inside. No receipts. Just her. "This is the last thing," she said. "Then I'll disappear, if that's what you want." I took it. Didn't open it right away. I just nodded, and she nodded back. There were no tears this time. No pleading. No broken voice trying to justify shattered things. Just quiet. Mature. Final. She turned to leave, but I called out before she got to her car. "Did you mean it? What you said last time, about loving me once?" She turned around slowly. "I loved you more than I understood myself. That's why I broke it." And then she left. I didn't open the envelope until an hour later. I sat at the dining room table, the same table where I signed the divorce papers. The same one where Jonah once drank coffee from my favorite mug. The same one where Lila asked me to accept madness as modern love. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter. Not typed. No fake affirmations. No borrowed phrases from spiritual influencers. Just ink on paper, shaky in places, like she'd written it in one sitting and couldn't stop. "Russell, if you're reading this, it means I didn't run from the truth for once. There are two kinds of betrayal. The kind where you hurt someone on purpose, and the kind where you hurt them by trying not to hurt yourself. I committed both. When I lost the baby, I buried it. Not just the grief, the part of me that wanted to be whole. I thought if I reinvented myself, I wouldn't feel the ache. Jonah was the mask I wore to hide what I couldn't heal. You were always steady, gentle, predictable. And I hated that because it reminded me of everything I didn't feel I deserved. But now I see, you were never boring. You were safe. You were love in its truest, quietest form. This is not a letter asking for a second chance. I know what I lost. I know I gave it away, piece by piece, pretending it was growth. This is just a thank you. For loving me when I was unbearable. For standing up for yourself when I didn't believe you would. For walking away with dignity when I tried to burn down everything we built. I hope one day someone else gets to know the version of you I buried under my confusion. She'll be lucky. And if you ever think of me, I hope it's not with rage, but with the softness of someone who once meant well and lost her way. Always. Lila. I sat there for a long time, letter in hand. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt okay. It didn't fix everything. Nothing ever really does. But it gave the story an ending that wasn't just ash and silence. 3 weeks later, I moved out of that house. I gave away the blender. Started cooking meat again. Adopted a dog. A rescue mutt named Clover with one floppy ear and a growl that sounds like a laugh. I even signed up for a class at the community center. Woodworking. Nothing deep. Just something with my hands. Something real. And one evening, while walking Clover near the river, I ran into someone. A woman, kind eyes, sun-worn smile. We talked about dogs, then about coffee, then about nothing at all. She laughed when I told her I used to think kale smoothies could save a marriage. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed too.